Well, hey guys, it's Spiffy Guy, and it's the first day of spring, so it's time to get working on the garden. I'm out here and we're going to be making a new raised bed. This one is going to be U-shaped, and we're going to have a built-in rabbit fence. So stick around. That's what we're doing on this episode of Around the Home. So as I mentioned, it's the first day of spring and it is gloomy, 40 degrees, but that's not going to stop us. We're gonna make this raised bed. So I've already done a previous video on making my original raised bed, which was a 4x5 raised bed using the square foot gardening method, and I will put a link somewhere around in here to that video. You can go check that out. We're going to pretty much use the same process, but I thought I'd bring you along and kind of show you what we got going on. Alright, I mentioned this in my garden update video I did last week, and essentially this is going to be a U-shaped bed. You can see we've got the edges here. We're going to come down in, and then we're going to go back in this area. And the reason it's a U-shaped bed is that way I can walk into the center part and get to the back corners and everything that I need. It's going to be a lot easier than making this just like a full 8x8 or an 8x6. Be easier to get to the middle. So the first thing I did was I kind of staked out a rough idea of where I wanted to be. Like I said, I'm about 8 feet on the back here, and then these sides will be about 6 feet right here. So I'm not a very good carpenter, and the fact that my ground slopes a little bit doesn't help out either. So the first thing that I did was I picked a corner. I picked the highest corner, and I set my string at the height that I wanted it to be. This is about 12 inches right here. And we'll come out to kind of roughly around there. We'll see. And then I ran my string all the way along, and I put a string level on them. It's a little thing that clips onto a string and kind of gives you that level bubble. You can pick up a set of those at Harbor Freight, super cheap. And I went ahead and leveled all the way around, and I figured out my measurements for each corner. And the reason being is I need to figure out how many boards I'm going to need, how many fence pickets I'm going to need going down the side. So once I got my measurements, I kind of did a little math and figured out the materials that I'm going to need. So, and like I said, I'm making this up as I go along, so we may make some adjustments as we go. But let's take a look at the materials that we got going on. Okay, the same as the other raised bed up here, we're going to be using cedar fence pickets. I liked anything that's going to come in contact with the ground. I want to use cedar. I don't want to use pressure treated. I got a thing against pressure treated, and I don't particularly want any of those chemicals or anything leaching in there. I know it's kind of a hot debate, but that's kind of what I do. So I've got 6-foot fence pickets here, and this is going to be the majority of what we're going to use on the sides. Since the back is 8 feet, I did a little pricing out, and it was actually cheaper to get the 4-foot fence pickets than it was to get single 8-foot ones, or to get a 6-foot and cut them up. So I got the 4-foot fence pickets here. These are dog-eared, so just keep that in mind that you have those little notches out in the corner on one side. Just position your wood accordingly to where it looks nice for you. And then for the supports, we're just going to go ahead and use this leftover cedar lumber that the fence people left when we had the fence put in. You know, it works well for me. You could use anything you want. You could probably get away with using like a cedar 2x2. You could buy the balusters that they use for decking and stairs and things like that at Home Depot fairly cheap, but I have this 2x4 material, and I have enough of it that I can put supports on all the corners and the sides that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and use those. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to get up this back piece. We're going to make that back piece 8 foot. We'll pull these strings out and these little posts and get building. Alright, just to give you another insight on the materials I'm using. I'm going to be using these deck mate screws. These are, I believe they're a 1 5/8, yep. And they have this nice star bit pattern. I like that. I find that it doesn't slip as much. And they give you a free little bit. I like to use a speed chuck too because I like to pre-drill my holes. I find that it keeps the fence pickets from cracking. So, and another good tool to have with you would be a nice speed square. We'll find the middle here, and we'll get these nice and flush, and then we'll just screw down there, and that will give me my back panel. One tip that I picked up is to get straight screw lines, you know, everything all nice in a row. Drop a chalk line. I picked this one up at Home Depot for about $6, and it came with a thing of chalk. It's a nice aluminum body. It'll last forever. And then it gives me a nice straight screw line, so it looks a little bit professional, which I am not. So, you know, anything I can do to make my projects look a little bit better, you know, it works for me. Alrighty, so there we go. After a quick battery change and a long conversation with the neighbor's bulldog to get him to stop barking at me, we have completed the 8-foot back panel. Now, I went flush on the sides, and I point this out because this will affect your measurement if you're not careful. So on my 6-foot sections, I'll go flush up to this end, and then I will go flush on the other end as well, and I'll explain that because once I do the U-shaped, and kind of let me give you a little idea, as we come along here, I'll go flush on the back side and then flush up to here, because the U part in the front will have to cut to measurement. So I'd rather get the full length of the 6-foot all the way this way, and then it's only like 1 inch, you know, or an extra ½ inch, but still, it's you know, that's the plan. And then once I kind of get it fitted in, I'll cut the bottom pieces to match. I don't really need a whole lot sticking down into the ground, and I am going to end up having to trench along here to get the boards to sit in there. But I left enough on here that if I need to, I can add another 4-foot panel on the side that'll be lower, which will be over here. So it'll make sense as it all kind of goes together. But we're going to flip this guy around because that is the exterior, and then we'll put the 6-foot panels up. Alright, so there you go. The side panel is on. As I mentioned, these are long, and I'll cut them off or just bury them in the ground because I'm not going to be 4 panels high. The dirt will probably be right about here on this 3rd panel. So I could have, you know, tried to figure it out and cut at an angle, but it's just easier for me to put in the 4 boards and then either bury it or draw my line and cut afterwards. That's just kind of, like I said, I'm not a very good carpenter, so this is kind of the way that I'm doing it. So that was kind of hard to get that junction, but now that I've got that junction there, it's fairly stable. I'll come over here and I'll do this side and get that side panel. It's moving real quick. Once you have the measurements, you just need to know, you know, how many boards do you have to put, and then it's just a question of screwing them in place. Alright, so I got the sides screwed together. I will be putting in a side support here and a side support there. I'll do that at the end once I kind of figure out, you know, how the ground is going to work out. So that was the easy part. I didn't have to do any cutting because these were the 4-foot panels and these were the 6-foot panels. So they required no cutting. So now I got to figure out what I'm doing here. So essentially I have 8 feet and 1 inch total across. So I'm going to put about a 36-inch in the middle. So to make things easy, I'm going to take the 6-foot fence pickets and I'm going to cut them in half. And so I'll come in 30 inches and then go in that way. So 30 inches on each side and then in that way. Alright, so anybody who's following along and has a basic understanding of math, which apparently I don't, you realize that a 6-foot fence picket, when cut in half, does not equal 30 inches. Anyway, I was thinking of the next part, which is 36 inches. But so what we'll do is we'll mark out 30 and 30 and cut off that little end. That little foot at the end you can save. We could use that to make a nice little small planter box out front, because those little dog ears on the top would look nice. And that way we remove the dog ears, so you know, we don't have to deal with them and to look about where we're going to place them on the planter. If you are using power tools, which I got the circular saw here, make sure to use hearing protection and eye protection. As somebody who has suffered damage to their ears, let me tell you, having a constant ringing in your ears all the time is not fun. So, you know, these things are like $5-6 at Home Depot, or you know, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, whatever. I mean, they're super cheap. So just do it. Also, use your speed square, and when you set your saw up here, use your speed square, get it tight against the wood, and that'll help you get a nice solid straight line. So we're going to cut up 8 of these 30-inch pieces to go down here and right there. Okay, we've got the front panels on. These are the 30-inch panels on either side, and that'll leave us with a 36-inch walkway. You can kind of get an idea. That's about how wide it's going to be. They recommend when you're putting beds in that you use walkways of 36 inches, and honestly, you know, shortening it up in the middle here wouldn't make that much of a difference. So we're going to go ahead, and next thing we'll have to do is we're going to go in and then do the back panel. So the back panel will be 36 inches, and I believe I got to look at my measurements, but I believe that we're just going in a couple feet, maybe 3 feet at the most, I believe, and that way we'll have a 3 feet bed, or 3 foot coming off the back wall, which will give us plenty of reach, and then you know, the 30 inches that way. So we basically have about 2.5 squares, so that'll give us enough squares to where we could plant 2 squares worth of stuff, and then use that half a square to plant some marigolds around the edge to make it look nice, something like that. All right, so we have the side panels on. You can see this is 36 inches from here to there, and that basically makes it half the distance. And so then once we put our cross panels in, we'll have about 3 feet of space between, you know, the end of the U, or the middle of the U here, and then the back panel. So that'll give us enough reach. The corners may be a little difficult, but once I put the rabbit fencing on, it will be removable, so I'll be able to get to those back corners if I need to get to them for planting and that sort of things. So we're going to cut across here. I've got 4 pieces cut, which are right there, and they are 38 inches, and the reason being is it's going to be 36 inches from this point all the way across to this point, but because I have the 1.5 and a half inch of the wood, we want to go all the way up here, so we've got to add that extra inches, so it's going to be 38. The whole thing is not square at all, and it's not level, as you can see. I'm going to trim these bottom pieces off once I get it into place and start leveling it off. We'll do that on another episode. I've run out of screws at this point, so I just need to go back to Home Depot and get some more of the deckmate screws. We were minus 21, so I suppose I could pull them from the front here or whatever, but you know, I like to overkill a build a little bit by putting in, you know, 4 screws, you know, per post there. Okay folks, so here is the final product here. You can see that we've got our little entryway right here, and then we'll have well, this is about 29 inches or so, so that's about 2.5 squares if you're doing the square foot gardening. I'm thinking about doing 2 squares, and then on the side here in that little 6-inch spot, I'll either plant some marigolds, or perhaps maybe I'll get brave and do like some squash and let it come over the side. And you know, we'll figure it out as we go. I'm not really sure how exactly I'm going to plant this, but I am going to be putting a trellis across the back here because I really think that that vertical type gardening is quite useful. It did very well last year with the tomatoes and the cucumbers, and I plan to do that again this year. So anyway, that is it. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post them below. And the next thing I need to do is sink this into the ground and cut off the little legs here. I left them a little long in case, as I sink things down, if I have a gap, I can bring another board and have something to tie it into. You know, same in the back there. I only have 3 across, and I may need a 4th one right here. But I left them long, and once I start digging it out, I'll figure that out. But I will do that as another time. As you can see from the sky, it is cloudy, and we are supposed to have severe weather for the next 3 or 4 days. So we'll see how the hoopty house holds up. But there you go. That is the U-shaped raised bed, and I'll get this in the ground, and then we'll do another episode on the rabbit fencing and how I plan to attach that trellis. So I appreciate you guys watching, and just remember that life is an adventure, so go out and have one.